Lo-Fi Horror Guys Growing on You Live Season 15 is sponsored by Metal Blade Records. Metal Blade Records was formed in 1982 and still remains independent with offices worldwide. Throughout the years, the label has released material for countless renowned acts such as Metallica and Slayer, and is currently home to Amon Amarth, the Black Dahlia Murder, Cannibal Corpse, Space Chaser, and many other legendary artists. You can find Metal Blade Records on social media as well as metalblade.com to find the latest news and new releases. Once again, find them on social media as well as metalblade.com.
All right, Alan, how you doing, man?
Hey, good. Good to see you.
Man, you as well. Thank you very much, first and foremost, for the time tonight. This is so sick, man. I appreciate you coming and hanging out, dude.
Yeah, of course. It's definitely fun to be on a different type of interview than usual. It's usually always just centered around music, but I like having the horror aspect there as well because I'm a big fan of that genre.
Oh yeah, yeah. I figured it'd be something. I don't try to push on too many people, but if I see something in my research as far as an interest, kind of do something. And I'm really excited to dig into the movie that you ended up watching as well as what I watched, and some kind of things with that. So first of all, as far as like I mentioned, I really appreciate you coming on today. This is awesome. Here I'm Growing on You Live. First, I have an introduction question. Then the remainder of the interview is about you and your craft. We're going to talk some movies later on, and then we finish off. I have one finale question there for you that I wrote just for this. So if you're all comfy and ready, dude, we're gonna get this bad boy going.
I'm here and I'm ready to talk.
Boom, perfect. All right, let me ask you. My wife and I do a little traveling, okay? And actually, we're in Michigan. So are you still somewhere the Detroit area?
Oh yeah, I'm living out in Mount Clemens right now, so I'm in the way northeastern part of the state, and but I've been here for about 7 years, and don't really have any plans on leaving anytime soon. It's pretty affordable and just easy place to have a home base, especially when the band was based here for a long time, and this is where we keep all of our stuff. So it's just like you get right off the bus and you can go right home. So
yeah, for sure. Okay, let me ask you, as far as so with that area, if we were coming through and I just said, Alan, I need a spot, I need a local eatery, I need something that that's off the beaten path. What would be a local spot that's a favorite, and what do we have to try there?
Ooh, that's a good question because I would ask the same thing. For as long as I've been here, I've like not wholly gotten out into Michigan. It's like when I'm at home, I'm usually just a total hermit. Like I'm sitting at home doing absolutely nothing or getting ready for the next tour, So,
right.
Man, but as far as a good place to eat around here, man, I'm just gonna have to go with the first thing that like is off the top of my head and say that the local Thai place that I have by my house, it's called Thai Orchid. It's really good. Yeah, that's like literally all I can think of right now. My brain is like totally.
No, I mean that's cool. It's something that is like that. That's kind of the idea with the question too. Is it's not something that you sit and fester on in some fancy fucking answer or some place that you might have only been to once in your whole life. Something that just pops into the mind. So I like that. That's good for sure.
Yeah, sorry everybody. It's probably like pretty decent Thai, but it's nothing to write home about. I don't think.
Right. So kind of an advertisement, and maybe not.
Hey, it's like if you're in the area, which I don't think many people are ever, just
right.
Go check it out, I suppose.
Yeah. Okay. Nice. Now, you really quick here. You had mentioned as far as coming back and having that time off a tour and different things like that, and prepping. How much time do you generally take as far as before you end up going back to a tour, getting back on the kit and, you know, getting into the routine of playing and whatnot? What's like a time frame that you give yourself as far as getting back in the swing of things?
It kind of depends on the length of time that we have between tours. If it's like, you know, 2 to 3 months, I might take like a month off of playing any of our stuff, and then I'll kind of like start lightly integrating it back into like my playing again, you know, after about a month, because it's just easier to have that little bit of upkeep the whole time than it is to just leave it for the last second and be like, oh God, I'm like brushing up on all this stuff, and just trying to make sure that I like remember every little detail and there's nothing that's going to like trip me up when I play. So yeah, I'd say like the more time that we have between tours, I give myself a little bit more of a leeway window, but like I would say I try to, you know, have at least a third of my time home being like nothing, and then the other 2/3 is like just staying on track with the set list or the potential set list.
Oh, okay. Okay. Got you. Yeah. So giving yourself some space from it, and, you know, not completely beating, you know, yourself in the head with it, but also, you know, kind of rearing back for getting ready for it. I mean, because I can imagine the night to night exercise that you get from touring with playing this.
It's actually a lot easier on tour. It's more of tour is more of my vacation, because when I'm at home, I'm putting a lot more time and effort into getting everything down before I go out on the road. And then when I'm finally out there touring, I'm only playing the set once a night, which can be kind of a pain for me, because I'm not a guitar player, so I can't like bring my guitar or my bass or whatever onto the bus and like practice whenever for how long and all that stuff. It's like when I get out there on the road, I've got to be ready, and then like when I get to touch my kit is just to set it up for sound check and do sound check, and then it's like no more drums the rest of the day until the show.
Okay.
And then, you know, you get back on the bus. So it's like in the last few tours that we've done in the States, I've brought my electronic kit with me, and I've tried to, you know, use that to warm up pre-show or just like go over stuff in other days where I'm like, oh, I feel like I'm slipping a little bit on this song or something, because like I'm saying, it's like you don't get to practice anymore once you get on the road with drums. You're just you're gonna do it at showtime. That's it. Like that's the only time you get to play this stuff, and then the rest of the time you're air drumming. So like it's a huge pain in the ass, because I'm stuck like setting up 2 kits a day, and having to like wheel everything in, and then having to find a space to even put my my electronic kit. You know, it's like sometimes we play venues where we've got a fucking closet for a backstage, and it's like nobody wants me to be fucking set up in there with a kit that takes up, you know, already 25% of the space that we're allotted. So yeah, it's a big pain in the ass, but like I've been trying to do that a little bit more, and yeah, it's like what I would like to do more in the future. And then I just get to like mess around a little bit more, you know, like especially when we were touring last, we were about to go into the studio for Verminous, and I had to like learn shit on the road, and that really came in handy, bringing my kit with me to be able to like kind of try and start learning some of that stuff before I had to go into the studio right after the tour we were on.
Oh, okay, okay. Was it typically with the previous albums where it was more of a in studio where you were actually, you know, kind of implementing things down, like you had a mindset of what it was you were going to do going in, but once in the studio was when you were kind of laying down the chops with everything?
So like we demo everything before we go into the studio, and
Sure.
we have, 90% of it or 95% of it figured out, and it has to get approved, because we're all kind of like trying to be on the same page about who's doing what when we get in there. And yeah, so it's pretty much finalized before I get in there, and there's just like subtle things that change, and then sometimes it's like, it takes a long time to get all this shit figured out and like worked into your limbs and memorized and all that stuff. So there's like subtle differences that might make it onto the final recording, and but for the most part, it's like, yeah, it's already figured out.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Nice. Nice. So bringing it back a little bit, as far as growing up and in your youth, what were some earlier bands or even songs, albums that resonated with you? Maybe even before having an interest in music. Some earlier things.
So I grew up on the Beatles, like, heavily. My dad was just listening to them like all the time, and so like the 60s era pop, like British Invasion Beatles was like what I was listening to all the time. And that, and like there was some various other stuff, like Oingo Boingo was in there, and
Okay.
and my parents, like, loved them, and then of course were like, oh, that song Dead Man's Party you like so much? Well, this is the guy who writes like all the movie scores. And then it's like, I loved Batman, like the Tim Burton 1989 Batman.
Yeah.
So like, then, that's Danny Elfman right there. And
Right.
so yeah, Beatles, Danny Elfman. There was like some radio stuff in there occasionally, like whatever was kind of like big at the time. I'm like, both of my parents were musicians, so they weren't like, totally. I mean, they weren't listening to stuff that was just like the worst popular crap ever. It was like,
Okay.
but yeah, just kind of like a spread of different stuff. And then, as I got older, like parents started listening to different stuff. I started listening to different stuff, but those were like, I would say also, like, when I was younger, probably Green Day, Blink-182, whatever kind of like new metal crap was being played on the radio when I was growing up and getting ready for school and stuff. Like, there was a Canadian station that would broadcast over here in Michigan, and usually they had a pretty good array of music that they would play, because they weren't like bound to the same kinds of like restrictions as the American stations around here. Oh, 89X.
Okay.
I'm sorry, dude. I knew, I forgot that, like, you're a Michigander yourself. So 89X.
Yeah.
Like whatever they were playing, like that was, what I was listening to as well.
Okay, all right. I know, well, like we had some that were more based. They were out of town because I was always like in a smaller town, so it was always something based out of like a bigger, city that was around that hardly would come through. So radio wasn't necessarily a thing, but I do remember hearing that station name before, traveling through the state and different things like that. As far as you mentioned Danny Elfman, was that kind of like the earlier, memory of you having, as far as watching a movie and music standing out? Was Batman?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, like Batman. I don't know when my parents showed me that movie, but like I had to have been somewhere around like 2 to 3 to 4 years old or something when I watched it, and then it was like when I was actually cognizant of like what was going on. That was when they were like, oh yeah, this is the guy who does the music, and like, and so then that kind of information and stuff just really stuck with me, I think, because I was very drawn to music in general. So it was like, oh, okay, this thing that I absolutely love is like, there's this commonality with this other guy. And so then I just started getting a little bit more like focused, or I noticed a little bit more those types of details like in other things. And And then, of course, you have The Nightmare Before Christmas, which came out when I was like 4 years old or something. And then that was another Danny Elfman thing. And so then that all just like started to kind of launch me toward like paying more attention to, the musicians and the the projects that they were involved with.
Yeah, totally. And it's funny you mentioned that too. It was an earlier movie that I had saw when I was younger, and it was Jaws, and that was really kind of like the first moment where I was like, shit, like the music can be something more than just some sort of background, like filler. It's like this. The music in that movie, it's almost like it's a character in itself, and it's like you hear something, it's like, oh shit, something's about to happen.
Yeah, and I think that like composers are almost a way larger part of our lives than we really acknowledge, because
totally.
Shit, I mean, I watched the original Star Wars trilogies like a bazillion times, and it's like John Williams is definitely ingrained in my brain.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And I love that you brought that up too, as far as with music too, because that's something I didn't think to maybe even incorporate in this with film and the music in that too. So I love that. Where did your first CD come in? As far as, or even cassette tape? When you got to buy with your own money, what was it, and where'd you get it from?
So that's a funny question, because I was trying to think about that, and I was sort of like, man, I really can't even put my finger on what the first like CD I ever bought was. Like, I just kind of,
okay.
I think I acquired CDs from like my parents, or I'm not really sure exactly how it went. It was just like from as far back as I could like push my brain to go. I was just like, yeah, I had albums. I just don't really remember where they came from. But like, the only thing I could remember is I think like in the beginning, I was just one of those kids that, what was it? It wasn't like I had a weird music taste, or that I like, it was kind of like I just didn't know what to get. And so like some of the first things that just jumped out at me, I just like try to run with it or whatever. And like, so the best answer that I can give you, it's like really weird, but I remember being really excited and buying the Lost in Space soundtrack from the movie, the one that came out in like 98 or something like that. And
yeah.
I know that's like the weirdest answer ever, because that is like the weirdest soundtrack ever. It's like it's a bunch of like bizarre electronic music, and like, I don't know if you know who like Death in June is, but I remember like they were on it, and like, I don't know, probably a handful of other electronic artists that maybe either European people or people who were in the scene at that time know about. But like, there was that. And then as I got older, maybe like around 11 or 12, I definitely remember I was like, I bought like Significant Other from Limp Bizkit and and Issues from Korn. And those were like, those were albums that I was like so fucking stoked to have. So that's about the time where I started remembering. And I think that like, as a kid, you just don't have any fucking money, so you like can't ever buy anything. And then you're kind of just like I said, so distracted from moment to moment that you're like looking at this album and then this album, and that's why I think fucking Lost in Space happened to be my first one. I don't know.
Nice. I love that. I love it.
And what's her face? God, I can't remember her name, but she was on Party of Five, and she was the first voice of Meg Griffin from Family Guy. Lacey Chabert.
Yeah.
Lacey, I had the biggest fucking crush on her, because she was all gothed out when she was in that movie, and that was like that was my first 10-year-old like celebrity crush.
Was she on the cover art?
I think she was, and I definitely think I studied it very closely.
Yeah. Nice. So this kind of transitions into the next, kind of category with this, as far as with cover art, scanning some aisles. Black Dahlia Murder, of course, you guys always have, especially these last like 4 or 5 records, have some sick cover art, something, just really drawing visuals. Tell us about a time, when scanning through a record shop or a CD store where something pulled you in. And you kind of just answered that with Lost in Space. But is there anything else that comes to mind, bands-wise that you're into?
Oh, yeah. One of the best choices I ever made, picking up something purely on album art, and pretty much the only time I really, allowed myself to have it happen, because I think I was, smarter than that most of the time to realize that, yeah, the album art might be cool, but that will totally not reflect whatever is, on this disc. But the one time that I lucked out was Himza, Courting Tragedy and Disaster. I was in the store, and that album cover just caught my eye. It's that blue and black album cover, which has the kind of foresty vignette sort of kind of thing, and then it's got the girl who's looking at you like this, and it's super creepy almost, and then you flip it upside down, you just realize she's she's crying, and I'm like, it definitely looks a lot cooler if you hold it the right way, but it looks creepy as fuck, and I was just kind of that looks pretty tough, and then I got home and put it on, and holy shit, dude, that song Dominion is the first fucking song on the album, and it just kicks you in the balls right away. It was right up my fucking alley with the harmonized guitar stuff, and just the kind of metalcore aspect. I mean, that was just exactly what I was looking for at that age, and it blew me the fuck away.
Nice. It's funny with you mentioning that band, as far as I remember, my friends went and saw them live, and the reason they bought the album was seeing them in their set. They had a clip from Army of Darkness where he says something to the effect of, first you want to kiss me, now you want to kill me, blow. And they had that play before a song, so they're like, holy shit, and at first we none of us were really into the album because it wasn't actually on the album, it was just live. And so we're son of a bitch. But yeah, that album is good. Once you give it a little bit of a chance, and we got past that element of it, yeah, that album is sick for sure. I love that. It's a good answer. Shit.
Yeah, they're one of the few bands that wrote really dark sounding metal, and I don't know how to describe it. I've tried to explain it before, but I don't know, my band with the first album, and even the second one, and I mean, I don't know, you could argue all albums, but the ones that hit me the hardest, the first two, and that Himza album and stuff, there's this darkness and this evil sounding quality to the riffs, and it's not black metal, because black metal has a very distinguishing sort of sound, that minor, kind of power chord sound, but the riffs that they were writing were just so evil and heavy, and then with the harmonies and stuff, all the guitar work, it lended even more of a dark sound with the certain harmonized parts and everything. So yeah, they were
totally
definitely a big influence on me at that age.
Sweet. Okay. All right. So with your interest in music and heavy music, kind of developing and things, where do drums come in? And tell us about the first kit, even the shitty thing that you found on the side of the road, anything like that. Where did your first drum kit come into play?
So this is actually a cool story that I haven't told before, but I used to be in acting as a kid. I lived in California, and I got hooked up with a agency when I was living there, and I had a schoolmate that was also in acting, and so she or her mom talked to my mom, and I did a few commercials, and I did a movie. It's called the Underground Comedy Movie. It's totally fucking no one's hardly ever heard of it, but the main guy who wrote it and starred in it is Vince Offer, the slap chop guy. And yeah, so like before he was a like product salesman on TV, like a Billy Mays guy. He had a comedy writing directing career, and so like me and my brother, I went for this audition, and my brother happened to be there, and they loved me for the part. They loved my brother, and they decided to get us both in on the movie. And so like I am ironically the Batman in this movie. And it's like this guy, I don't know, like a baseball player or something like that, and it's like his origin story in the movie, and I'm like the child version of where everything goes wrong. It's like him and his brother are playing baseball in the house or something, and I hit the ball into the fireplace, and my brother goes to pick it up, and when he gets it out of the fireplace, he like burns his face, and this is like where the bad guy comes in.
Oh shit.
So so anyway, like I did that movie and those commercials and shit, and my mom was like putting away all my money from all that stuff, and then I got to be about like 9-10 years old. I moved to Michigan, and I was living around the like Plymouth Canton area, and at that time there was this place called Pro Percussion or something, and it was this little store out there, and like my mom had taken me there, you know, a good number of times to buy like drumsticks or a drum pad or like just little crap, because drums are obviously expensive. And then we got to know the owner, and he was this really nice dude, and he noticed that like, you know, I had a real interest and like shine for drums, and he was like, well, you know, we got this kit here, and like I'll give it to you for like $100. And so we took like the money that I had and just went and bought the kit with it. And from all the years before, though, I had been playing on a practice pad till like literally the practice pad like split in half. So I got that kit, as a replacement finally, and that was like the way that I got my first kit, and just I played the fuck out of it, and just like when I like had already dented the hell out of the stock heads and everything, I just flipped that bitch over and started playing on the resonant heads, not knowing any better. So yeah, I really, you know, ran that thing ragged.
Jesus Christ. Is that something that you still have today?
I don't know. It might be at my dad's house, but I'm not sure, because it has been years since, like, God, I think I had it up until I was about 13 or so. Oh, and okay. So it might be in storage. I'm not really sure.
Oh, okay. All right. So from that initial kit that you learned all your chops on and different things like that, you know, what were some of the first songs that you wanted to go in, you just wanted to sit down and you could hammer out right away, and then, you know, maybe a song that it took a little time to learn, you know, for you to be able to play along with it?
So like my dad being a guitar player, we used to jam a lot, and you know, it was mainly just whatever he knew. It was mostly just like Beatles stuff, and like, oh my God. Then my dad was like obsessed with That Thing You Do, because it was so like reminiscent of the Beatles, and just had kind of like a catchy soundtrack and everything. So like we would jam that, and like I think there was some like Green Day, some Blink-182 stuff. I mean, like, as I got a little bit older, and fuck, like, as far as things that took me time to actually learn, like, I don't even remember exactly when I started really putting effort into learning a cover. It was just kind of one of those, like, I know the majority of the song structure, and that's probably good enough.
Yeah.
and it was like, and then I had like a Halloween show in my friend's garage, like when I was, something like 12 or 13. So maybe at that point I was like having to learn how some shit went, because it was like we covered like Chop Suey by System of a Down, and I think we were like doing Nirvana stuff at that point, but like it probably wasn't till maybe when I was like 15 or something, and actually no, you're still talking about like covers that take effort. I would say like 17 or 16 when I like tried out for Abigail Williams, or actually no, the Agony Scene. That was the first band that I tried out for, was the Agony Scene, and I had to film myself doing one of their songs, and then like that took a little bit of effort, and then it was like a few months later I was doing the same thing for Abigail Williams, and that was like off of their EP. So I would say probably like 16, 17, somewhere with those bands.
Yeah, okay, sweet. From that initial drum kit, what was your kit that you moved into that was like this is me on my next level, starting to play shows, what was that drum kit?
So I didn't know it at the time, and I'm kicking myself always for this, but I had a family friend who sold me a Rogers kit. Actually, I don't even know if they sold it to me. I don't know. They might have just given it to me. And Rogers is like a pretty reputable jazz company, and like their kits are very expensive. I don't even know what kind of wood this kit was made of, but like I got it and I played on that for a number of years, and unbeknownst to me, that it was a great step up. It just wasn't like something I was familiar with, and it also was not something that like either looked or sounded the way that like I wanted it to. And so I got that, and then traded it I sold it to my church, because my parents, like a lot of my music comes from them also being involved with churches and playing music within them. And so like I sold the kit to the church and went and got the much flashier onyx white PDP kit. It was like a birch something or other. It might have just been full birch kit. And that's when I felt like I was stepping up, and I was like, oh yeah, this is like the sub company or whatever of DW. Like, this is definitely what I want. This is definitely like the better choice. And like I said, it wasn't until years later that I found out that the Rogers was worth way more, and I was like, fuck, dude, I screwed that one up. But like, just the sentimental value of the PDP kit that I had is like, I think more valuable to me now than the Rogers was.
Totally.
That had a place, but I spent way more time and tours and all that stuff with the if you go and watch the fucking Statutory Ape cover that I have on YouTube, that's with that PDP kit.
Oh, so, really? No shit. Okay.
Yeah, so I had that for a long ass time until I got into Black Dahlia, and they had their own kit, and it was actually one of Shannon's old Thomasora classics, and that's when I finally got like a big boy kit,
Yeah. You're like, oh boy, what am I missing?
Well, and also like, I don't know what's good. I've just been playing like what I could get a hold of and what I can afford. So
yeah, totally.
This is pretty cool, I guess.
Nice. So along, kind of with your style of playing, you've mentioned before, as far as with black metal, and the style kind of incorporating cymbal heavy and different accents and things. And I wanted to dig into, your cymbal driven style of playing, as far as, what was the foundation for some of your inspirations on your approach for playing when it came to, playing heavier music? Because, that was always something that I noticed right away, as far as, with your stuff, is very cymbal accent and cymbal heavy, that I totally love. I dig the hell out of it.
So it wasn't like the biggest focus of mine for a while. It kind of came about when I was doing Abigail Williams like auditions and stuff. It was when I first auditioned, that was for their EP, and it was like the time between the EP and the second album, which was the full length, and the full length had Trim from Emperor on it, and holy shit! I mean, you just go back and listen to Emperor stuff, and it's just like, holy fuck! Like, and when I heard that back when I was like 17, and I was all into metalcore and maybe like post-hardcore and shit like that, there is nothing reminiscent of like that style, and it was just like, holy shit, I am not ready for this, like it is so beyond my like comprehension skills at this point to listen to music like this and just take in all of those like little ideas that they have like in every fucking like place that they could possibly put them. So so it was like, when I heard that In the Shadow of a Thousand Suns, I was like, holy fuck, this is incredible. And then it just kind of carried on from there to the next album with like Ken Bedeni, who is playing in Aborted now, and he just took that style and did it himself, and holy fuck, like he like really flowed with it and wrote like incredible stuff. And after I feel like trying to get into that band for so long, I was so like, I wanted to absorb a lot of those elements, feeling like, oh man, this is this is like really intricate, like talented, interesting sounding shit, and it's nothing that I've ever really experienced before, so I want to like learn this, I want to understand it, I want to be able to like emulate it as best as possible. And so yeah, I kind of like listened to a lot of that, and then I guess I was always into like Dimmu Borgir and Old Man's Child and Cradle of Filth, and then of course all of those bands have just Nick Barker in common. So then it was like obvious that just hearing like Nick's style on all that different stuff, and just hearing like the, I don't know, just like the interesting and non like predictable sort of stuff that he would come up with. It was so refreshing and so different, and it was like, wow, this is really like outside of just drums that like follow a breakdown or something like that. Like it's really got its own like writing to it. So I would say like just kind of the overall black metal that most people I think would be familiar with. Like I just kind of went down a spiral with it, or down a hole with it, and just kind of like kept finding more stuff. And then of course like Hellhammer, once I found him, I was just like, damn dude, this guy's like a part of a million projects, and a lot of the shit that he's done is very like intricate and interesting, and it just, yeah man, it really like made me want to just go down that rabbit hole and try and follow it.
Dude, and having somebody like Hellhammer, and looking into all the stuff too, it's like, if you have a day that's just a bad day of practice, and it's like, god damn, you have somebody like him who you're in all these projects and they all fucking rule, and I can't get through practice today. Like, what am I doing wrong?
If anything, it's just fun to, yeah, but it's just fun to like, put on the stuff that he's done and just kind of like fuck around and try and follow what he's doing, because if anything, between like Nick Barker and Hellhammer and all those dudes that just have that flow and that like
Yeah.
just that rhythmic feel. It really, I think, opens your mind to all the possibilities of like what's out there. It's really just like there's a million different ways to play something, and they do all of that in all these different songs and albums and projects, you know?
Yeah, totally, totally. And if I could ask, maybe not necessarily a particular moment or time, but with some of the parts and accents and different things that you do with the style that you bring with Black Dahlia, has there ever been a moment that you're in like a 8 count time signature and you hit 23 cymbals and you're just like, all right, maybe I need to tone this part just a little bit down.
That's come with age.
Okay.
I think it's much easier to hear the things that you've done in the past, or at least like, well, actually, one thing for me that has really held, like a mirror up to my performance is, programming stuff out before I do it, because like in the past I didn't have the ability to program anything. Like the only way that I could ever make my ideas known to other people was to basically learn it as best as possible and then record it and then try to be like, hey, so this is what I would probably do here. And there's a huge difference between like recording and writing it versus like being a listener and not having to think about what you're doing in the moment. It's like if you can sit back and listen to it and then you're gonna get, I think, your most honest like idea of whether or not it's a good beat or not. Like, because I think as a drummer or a musician in general, it's just sort of like we're all driven to try and push ourselves to write things that are like maybe not so show-offy, but like something that maybe like pushes our skill range or our like ability within music. And so when you're kind of like lost in that mindset, you kind of forget what like musicality really is. It's really like serving the song, and you're not like trying to, like you said, hit 20 cymbals in the span of 2 bars or whatever, like, and there's been times where I've spent way too much time trying to learn how to play something to be able to record it to show someone, and then when I listen back, I'm like, oh, that's not nearly as cool as I thought it was going to be, especially for like this part. And yeah, so it's like programming stuff has helped infinitely with me just having to be like, hey, slow down, take it like one step at a time and figure this out, like, or at least listen to it and understand like, what it's going to sound like with everything else that's going on, and don't rush it, like trying to make the most intricate thing that you just thought of while you were playing, and you can't even like really listen to it while you're also trying to think about playing it. You know what I mean?
Man, it's such a great point, as far as, and somebody even mentioned in the comments, as far as, serving the song. It's one of those things where you can have the moment in your mind where it's like, man, this is going to be the most extreme fucking coolest thing in the world. And you go and you lay it down, you listen back and you're like, that wasn't a good choice.
Dude, it's the most unfortunate thing in music, but I think it just is kind of one of those it just regulates you. It's an ego regulator. You know what I mean? It's like you hear what you wanted to do, and then you can even tell yourself, you'll be like, I got to do the thing that I wanted to do. And even I'm like not convinced that this is the best thing that could be done for it. Right. So like, it's definitely, I'm as I go through the years, realizing, oh shit, like I can do much less and make it sound much cooler. And it's very hard, no matter what, to be able to accept that. But like when you do, I think everyone is more happy, including yourself, because you're just like, this sounds good, I can be happy with this, and I'm not like kicking myself because I did way too much and it sounds like just complete garbage.
Awesome. I love that. That's a great point, and definitely a good tip for anybody going in and writing some things, and not even necessarily for the most extreme or death metal or anything like that. Even for a basic rock song, it's like you're trying to do too much flair and shit. It's like, dude, just keep the beat. Sometimes that's all you got to do. And that's gonna work.
Click, make it. I mean, just program it. Click those squares, because like you can unclick those squares and you can move those squares and you can do whatever you want, but just fucking listen to that like 7-8 times and make sure that you're still as stoked on it as you were the first time,
Now, mentioning programming, was that something that did somebody teach you as far as, kind of the basics with that, and then you went off running, or was it something you just started kind of fucking around with, or how did that come about?
Well, it was kind of a necessity, but luckily I had a friend, my guitar player from my first local band, hooked me up with Ableton. That was like my first DAW, and he knew how to use it, and so that was what I got taught on. And yeah, I started using Ableton at first, and from there, recently, I started using Studio One, and
okay.
I like Studio One a lot more. It works for what I'm doing a lot more. Ableton is more along the lines, I think, of like electronic music, and it works. It's just like, every DAW has its perks and its like drawbacks, and I think after using Ableton for so long, Studio One just makes a little bit more sense for me. So that's what I'm doing now. And luckily, yeah, I had someone to show me how to do it, because holy shit, I mean, it's intimidating as fuck to look at some of those DAWs and be like, where the hell do I even start? Like, what do I do even get my VSTs in there? Like getting Superior Drummer to be located by the DAW,
Yeah. No. I mean, it's certainly it's something that it's quite an undertaking. The first time that you're sitting there and you're staring at it, you're like, what the fuck am I doing? But yeah, that is cool as far as having somebody who's a little familiar with it and kind of showing the A's and B's, so you can start with too.
All we know
cool,
is wood, plastic, and fucking metal, and then you're telling us that we also have to fucking know electronics? Like, that is not drums. Don't come at me with something I gotta plug into a wall, because that's not my instrument.
I love that. Good point. So with that, with kind of like these earlier on, different things and memories. We talked a little bit about your first bands and different things, and then also first shows and that Halloween show. I wanted to ask about your first experience as far as recording and time spent in a studio. Was that something that was an overwhelming experience? Was it something that ended up being gratifying? You were happy with at the end of it? How did that go?
So, trying to think of like maybe what would have been my first. Well, okay, so like back in my local band days, I had studio stuff, but like every level that you go to, you're gonna have like more and more pressure that you put on yourself, and probably better facilities that you're recording at. So then it's like you have a little bit of a different expectancy from the like overall product. And so like when I was a kid in my local bands, or when I was a teenager, I went in there and I was like, oh, I know my parts like pretty well, I suppose, and I'm ready to just go lay this down, because like obviously we need a recording and I want to get a recording out there. And it was like when I went in there for the first time, I totally was not understanding of like the entire process and the setup and the like idea behind it. It was like, because I also like didn't know a whole lot of people, dude. So to preface this, I grew up in Wyoming. Like most of my musical career kind of started, or basically started in Wyoming. And
Okay.
so, that's a small, that's a state with a very small population. And I grew up in a very small town. And there was like hardly fucking anyone out there who was doing anything that I wanted to be doing or that my friends wanted to be doing. There were some people in like other cities, but like other cities were we were separated from them by hours of travel. And so like we were not bros with like the next door town, like the next door town was like a fucking town that was 45 minutes away that had a population of like 12,000 people tops. So it was just like, dude, so you're talking about like, trial and error and fucking learning like what you can learn yourself. That's it, dude. You are in the middle of this thing by yourself. So basically like when I'm in the studio at that age, I'm like, I know my songs. I've already recorded with my guitar player by him dropping a fucking 58 microphone down his air vent hung by a cable and we're going to record my drums that way. So like that was how we recorded demos and stuff. And then when we finally got to like places where, or when we got with people who could like mic up my drums, I was like not really intimidated, really not thinking about what goes into it because I don't know what goes into it. So like ignorance is bliss.
Okay.
And I'm just, thank God, there was competent editing and stuff too, because I definitely wasn't even on the mindset of like, oh, you mean like I got to hit the same drums or the same cymbals and shit like that to be able to punch in to this next section. Like that's how you stitch this shit together.
Right.
So like at that time I was very naive. I was very like, I just didn't understand how recording worked, and it all works pretty well. Like I'd played those songs enough. I was comfortable enough with them and everything. But then I started doing shit like recording drum covers, and then I was like, oh, I do have to be like 100% perfect for this type of shit, and I do have to be able to hit this in one take and like make sure that it's perfect. And then that started really like hitting me hard mentally and as like and in the ego as well, because I was like, oh, I thought I was a great drummer, but like now I'm not so sure because I'm just not hitting it like as perfectly as I thought I could or I needed to or whatever. And so that just like tacked on to stuff, and then I got into like other bands, and I kind of recorded some other stuff for Abigail Williams that wasn't used for anything. And that was another like situation of, oh, you're going in the studio and you barely know what you're doing, and you got to go like knock this out pretty perfectly, or at least like with a very good general sense of what you're doing in order to be able to replicate your part or punch in where you need to. And then when I finally got into like Dahlia, that's where I really started realizing like, oh wow, okay, so now I've really got to like understand what the fuck I'm doing, because it's just not very easy to jump into a part when you're not playing the same thing consistently, and you're not like sure of and you're not sure of what the fill is that you did before, and you're not sure of what the cymbals were that you hit before, and so it's like then you punch in and then the engineer's like, are you sure that's what you did before, because like I got drums ringing out from this last part and this isn't happening. And I was like, so dude, it unfortunately, living in a small town and not having a lot of that experience and not having like that big brother to be there to kind of like walk you through some of the shit, or to have that like serious trial and error so many times in the beginning, you have to learn as you're going. You just have to like hit the ground running. And that was like, unfortunately, in my early to mid 20s was when I started really like getting, oh, this is what is kind of expected from the recording process, and that's what I have to deal with. You know what I mean? And so
okay.
it's gotten easier from there, and I've started recording myself, and I'm starting to understand it more, and like and basically recording is my new sort of like learning situation for myself.
Oh shit. Okay. Nice. Nice. You know, and I had to laugh and I had to make, you know, mention just the fact of you saying hanging the microphone from the
Yeah.
air vent there, because dude, I've been in so many situations like that. Or, you know, early on, and the only drum mic you have is something that you put in the bass drum, and you listen back and it's like, well, no wonder it sounds like fucking asshole. You have one fucking terrible microphone and it's sitting in the bass drum. Like, you're not gonna hear anything else.
I have to say that I was really happy, and I still am kind of like relatively impressed with the like quality of the recording, or I mean the quality of like hearing all the drums evenly that we got from those recordings. Like I definitely pounded the fuck out of my drums, because like at live shows
Weird.
back in the day, you had really crappy PAs. I mean, again, we're in the middle of fucking nowhere, so the gear that we have is the gear that we have. The knowledge of the people is what we have. That's it. So I always felt like I got to beat the fuck out of my drums in order to be heard in this VFW hall. And so that's what I took to the recording. So it was like I didn't use triggers, you know, for a long time. And but like I really pounded the fuck out of it. So most of it is audible, and it's like as a one-track recording, it can be like leveled with the other guitars and shit enough to be like, you know, to hear what's going on. And right. So it worked. It served its purpose back in 2006 or 5 or whatever we were doing it in, you know?
Yeah. Okay. You know, and so with, you know, with kind of these situations, imagine like, I still to this day try to think of like Dave Lombardo, you know, recording a Slayer album and only doing the drums and not doing cymbals along with it, and then having to go back and recording cymbals separate. I wish they would have fucking filmed that, because it's like, how the fuck do you do that?
I've heard of that, and I've heard Travis Barker does the same thing, and he does it one drum and cymbal at a time. And that just is mind-boggling. That is absolutely fucking mind-boggling to me, where it's like, yeah, we're just going to do snare today, and then we're just going to do tom 1 today. And then, like, you know, it's just, that would be my ultimate nightmare. It's like, no, please just let me do what I can do as best as I can do it, because I can't air drum this, and I can't, like, pretend that I'm hitting anything else and make it feel the same way. But it's like, when you got that part down, when you have that part orchestrated so fucking well that you know exactly what you're doing, then yeah, sure, I suppose you could go in the studio and knock that out, no problem. But like, that is not something I want to fucking be familiar with, you know? Like, Hollywood, Warner Brothers, all that shit, all that recording stuff, like, that is a different fucking level of musicianship that I have not dealt with and don't really want to deal with, you know?
right. Yeah, I mean, as far as just the cymbals and drums separate is insane enough, but I've never heard of, you know, doing specific, you know, drums and specific cymbals in different takes. Like, I can't even wrap my mind around where you would fucking start with something like that.
I've heard it's the best, but yeah, can't comprehend it either.
Yeah, dear Lord. So, someone's asking, as far as the triggers, and I wanted to make a mention when you mentioned that, as far as making that switch, what brought on that switch to you as far as taking that up?
Well, because I mean, everybody at a certain point in the thousands, you started hearing on records more and more of these like insanely loud and punchy kicks, and you were just like, how the fuck do they get that like consistent sound? And for me, it was fucking As I Lay Dying's what was that first album? Do you remember that first album?
Frail
Words Collapse.
Frail Words Collapse. There you go.
Yeah, so when I first heard that album, I was just like, what the fuck? How do they get this? Like these kicks are just unbelievable sounding. And then it was like I went into my first studio session, and holy fuck, it was hilarious to like go to the engineer who has been probably recording country western / simple rock shit for so long, and being like, how do you make our kicks sound like this? And he's just like, I don't even fucking know. And it was like, what do you mean you don't know? What the fuck? So, yeah, dude, the trigger situation was like one of the weirdest, most elusive, like, situations of being a drummer, because like I said, all we know is fucking wood, plastic, and metal. And it's like, oh, you mean I have to like incorporate some sort of digital fucking bullshit into my like rig, and then what else? Like, how do I make that come out of the speakers, you know? And so it was like, once I started doing shit with Abigail Williams, that was like sort of where I found out about, oh, triggers. This is the thing that makes your drum sound good. And then even then, when you get the trigger setup, it was like I got my Roland TD10, and that was the module that Nick Barker used like on the Dimmu albums, and and it was like, oh yeah, just get the trigger, get the module, and like you're good. And then it's like, well, nobody tells you got to fucking sit there and find a sample that works and then like tweak it to make it really work. And so, dude, I shit you not, my first couple of like shows / like recording / whatever, I mean, recordings for, thank God, just tryout shit and playing through an amplifier, you know, because I wasn't even sophisticated enough to have some sort of like interface that went to a computer. It was like a fucking 808 kick. It was a thuddy, gigantic, bassy fucking kick. And I was like, yeah, that sounds good. That really like gets the fucking beat across. You know, you just hear like, and I was like, yeah, that's awesome. And I don't know exactly when the fuck I figured out how to like change the EQ of the samples, but once I did, I can guarantee everything got a lot fucking better sounding. And yeah, so it wasn't until I was about like 18, 19 that I heard about the whole trigger thing, and that's when I switched, and that was where I was like, yeah, I don't want to go back. I don't want to deal with anything, because I was using fucking Danmar pads. And if any drummer is here, they know what a fucking Danmar pad is. It's one of those, like, you either have like the thin like tambourine piece of metal that's under a sticker on your head as a sticker, or you have the giant metal plate that is like 3 inches across or whatever, and it sounds like you're tap dancing on a fucking kick drum. It sounds so goddamn bad. I don't know why the hell they ever marketed it as a solution, because even at local shows, I knew it sounded like bullshit, and I was like 16, 17 and didn't know any better, you know?
Yeah. Oh my God. You know, how technology has come, you know, even in our lifetime, dear Lord. Thank God for advancement. Yeah, touche. Yeah, for sure. Nice. So, you know, kind of touching on those things and kind of digging into some of the earlier days, you know, and kind of bring us to today. You guys just recently announced a tour that you have going. There's already dates selling out. You know, what can you? Are there certain things or certain anything that you can tell us about this tour? Something that you're looking forward to getting back out on the road? I'm sure. Jesus.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's essentially it. That's pretty much the main thing that I'm excited about, is just a fucking sort of like life purpose again. Jesus Christ. I mean, like, It's so weird to be, you know, hanging out and just kind of like feeling like, man, I was on top of the world just a year ago, and I was doing my calling, and I was like, just, you know, like having a great time, and all of a sudden it's gone, and now it's like, oh, my entertainer skill no longer fucking makes any sort of money or applies to like the real world. What the fuck do I do now? And that was a scary like place to be, where it was just sort of like, Well, I kind of, dropped out of college with this understanding of like, I'm gonna go, live the dream or attempt to or whatever. And then when it happens, you get cocky for a while, and then all of a sudden, like, the fucking rug gets pulled out from underneath you, and you're just sort of like, oh, and now for some reason, I've got to, like, give something to society other than, what I'm best at, which is like hitting some fucking stuff rhythmically. It was very alarming, and now it's like, holy shit, okay, I can kind of breathe a sigh of relief that, like, we're gonna get back to this and people are going to come see us and I'm gonna get to do the thing again and just thrive in my element, so
Totally.
I think that's like my biggest thing that I'm looking forward to. And then, of course, just getting to see friends in all the different cities that we're going to. And, just have kind of like that first time reunion party almost.
Totally. Let me ask you, and I don't want to dig too far into this because we hear enough about the fucking pandemic and, this and that and sides and things. But on that note, do you think, is there anything from going through this last year of uncertainty and everything, is there anything moving forward that you might, change, or that you might have, a different approach to, just as far as, going back on the road and kind of knowing the feeling of like, fuck, this could end at any moment?
I think if anything, it's just, it's cliche, but it's like you gotta live in the moment, you gotta enjoy the moment. And one of the things that I have a huge problem with is being a perfectionist and making sure that, like, everything that I do is intentional and the exact same every single time and every single night and all that stuff. And I feel like I'm realizing at this point, we really did see the fragility of, like, the music industry and the entertainment industry overall, to the point where I'm like, dude, if I get up there and I play some fill that I wasn't fucking intending on playing or whatever, as long as I come out on beat one, I don't even fucking care what I do anymore. Like, I literally am like, dude, just that's fucking live showmanship right there. That's just, you didn't do anything wrong. I mean, you just didn't do what you expected to do, but you also, like, didn't fucking fall on your face. So you should take that as a win.
Right.
And I think that, like, that that's really one of those, like, you just have to basically take everything in stride, sort of, and just be like, well, did it fucking lead to total disaster? No? Okay, well, then I guess we'll just take that as a win and move forward.
Yeah, totally. And, and that is something too that I've always noticed, with your playing, as far as it being very, toned in and very, right to the things that you play. And it's cool, being able to see that, because there's a different impressive of going to a show and having a drummer that likes to, improvise on fills and kind of do different things. And then there's a different, other impressive where it's like, that dude is playing the same fucking thing from an album that he wrote 8 years ago. Like, how the hell, like, it's just like, it's all, like, it's just like, it's awesome to see. But I think that is a cool note, just as far as, having in the back of your mind, like, if I come out on, on a weird solo and I'm still on beat one, the rest of the band's looking at me rolling their eyes, like, I still made it.
Right, we haven't fucking train wrecked, so you might as well just, like, be happy with that. Like, I mean, we'll talk about it after the show or, like, tomorrow or whatever, but, like, yeah, it's basically, I don't know. And then the other thing is that it's sort of one of those deals where it's like, dude, you got to trust your bandmates. You got to trust that, like, when someone does a fucking solo and just goes nuts, it's like, that is solo number fucking 14 of the set, and you've listened to literally 14 other solos and every other song before that So like if this dude just improvs this shit, I'm not gonna like, sit on stage and be like, whoa, he didn't hit all that, like, he didn't hit that run that I expected him to do, so therefore I'm, like, really out of my element now. It's like, no, dude, you just, like, you gotta understand or trust that, like, your bandmates know the song, they're gonna fucking jump back in at the point where, like, they need to, and maybe they fucking took a little bit of a detour on accident, and just, like, here they are, they're back, with everybody else. And then it's just kind of, yeah, like you have two different types of bands. You have one that has like the drummer that does all sorts of flashy, crazy shit every night and does it different every night. And then you got the band that just does the repetitive stuff. And like as a fan, I love to hear some drummers do the exact fill from like whatever it is, like if it's fucking Chris Adler playing the fill from Ruin before the fast break, like I want to hear that fucking fill. Or I mean, like maybe something comparable that's very flashy as well. But it's like I'm not gonna be pissed if I don't hear hit for hit what the fuck the album was. It's like I trust the original guy to have the sense of the feel and the everything to be able to come up with something and just entertain us. You know what I mean?
Totally. I love that. Yeah, good answer for sure. That's a good point to be made, and kind of maybe tone back a little bit and have some fun if there's fun to be had with it, for sure. I dig that.
If there's fun to be had.
Right. We're already at over an hour. Are you still good to talk the movies that we had
yeah, man.
for this, or
let's pick this shit apart.
All right, sweet. Okay, as I say, I don't want to, I normally, when I reach out, I say around an hour, or less. I didn't want to be holding you up if you had other shit going on. So cool.
No,
all right.
Yeah.
So what, I wanted to do something a little bit different. We're going to, dig into some movies, and you had watched something for the first time, and then I had watched something surprisingly, even to me. I thought that I'd seen this movie, and it turns out that it was not that at all. So you watched the one and only The Color Out of Space, and then I watched From Beyond. So both H.P. Lovecraft, and we're going to, at the end of this, we're going to rate both of them out of 1 to 10 drumsticks. So that's right. What we're gonna throw at this bitch real quick. First of all, the poster art, or through IMDb, what did you think of the cover art for Color Out of Space?
So the cover art was interesting. Like it gave me like Mandy vibes when I first saw it, and I was definitely ready for some kind of like psychedelic feel to the movie. Not only based off of what I was initially seeing, but also what I was comparing it to. And it really didn't, differ too far from that initial, like, feeling of seeing the movie posters. So I felt like it more or less hit the mark for what I was kind of expecting.
Totally. I can't say anything different. I watched From Beyond, and it was funny because I saw the cover art. I've seen it time and time again. I just did a giveaway recently of the fucking vinyl soundtrack of the damn movie, for God's sake. And I go to watch the trailer, and I'm like, the movie that I've been thinking of for all these years was fucking, oh my God, Dagon, which is another H.P. Lovecraft, but that was not this. So I was like, shit, I need to check this out. And the cover art for that, is the same deal, where it's, you got the face stretching, and it's all nasty and ooey and gooey, and yeah, that's about what we got from Beyond as well. What stuck out with you or resonated visually as far as Color Out of Space?
So I'm gonna be honest, I am not like a huge H.P. Lovecraft fan. Not that like I dislike his stuff, I just am not familiar with it.
Yeah.
But I will say that the movies that I've seen of his stuff, because like I think it's really important, you know, it's people taking his work and like turning it into reality, like some sort of visual reality. I feel like a big theme with him is like human mutation or some sort of like monster kind of variant throughout his stories. And one of the things, you know, that I took from this movie was like if anything, it's that like other people take stuff from his movies, which is an obvious fucking no-brainer statement, because the scene in, spoilers everybody, the scene in Color Out of Space, it's like when they get to the alpacas are like just giant like fleshy mass that looks like The Thing. It looks like when all the dogs just like, you know, meld together, and it's that gross monster, like same exact idea. When the mom and the son meld together, that was like something I totally did not expect. And I mean, like, I was going to say I should have realized, but like I didn't know any better. But now that I've seen, you know, a few H.P. Lovecraft movies, it makes sense where it's like, From Beyond, it's nothing but just gross mutant humans that happened in the movie, and in Color Out of Space, it was like, it's almost like disturbing, because I feel like H.P. Lovecraft stuff, it kind of attacks like things that you don't expect it to, like the innocence of like the mom and the son, and then they end up like melding together, and you're sort of like, that's not supposed to happen according to like horror rules. No one who's nice and innocent is supposed to just like, you know, suffer the wrath of like the weird universal like indiscrepancy, you know, like it's like, that's horrible, but like there they are, and so that stood out to me. That was really gross and super kind of traumatizing, like and then like the other thing that I got out of it was it felt a lot like Annihilation. Because like the entire environment is becoming like that neon weirdo tropical kind of like environment that is unlike anything around it, and people are just kind of having to like try and figure out what's going on and adapt to it as it's happening.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, there's been any guests that I have that are film related or somebody that wants to, you know, talk movies. I often ask about, you know, like kind of scary scenes or things that just, you know, stick in your mind. And a lot of times the Zelda from Pet Sematary gets brought up, you know, as far as like some of the creepier moments in history. And I tell so many times, I'm like, man, if you haven't seen Color Out of Space, that scene when the mom and the kid morph together and like the noise that I think it's maybe the kid is making.
Yeah.
Dude, I looked at my wife and I'm just like, what the fuck? Like, horrifying.
He
terrifying.
Starts sounding like a baby, like crying. And that's, I think that's what hits you the hardest, is that you're like, ew, this is like really just, this is like a sort of, red button noise in terms of like nature, you know what I mean? Where it's like when you hear certain things, totally, you instinctually react a certain way and you go, oh God, baby suffering? That's like probably really bad. I should probably take care of that. But like when your baby is melted to your wife, you don't really know what to do. And that's where it gets like really like you can't stomach it. You're just kind of like, ugh, this is like some sort of bizarre fucking live or die situation. You're like, I don't know what to do with this, you know?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, and along with the creatures and the kind of gross, gooey aspects. What did you feel as far as with the actual characters in the movie? And Nick Cage. I know that there was an interview as far as Richard Stanley was so much of a fan of Vampire's Kiss. I don't know if you remember that movie or not,
I
but he wanted
haven't.
him to kind of take that approach as far as with this movie here too.
Yeah, I haven't seen that. I did hear that that was like a influence, or that was something that they wanted him to channel into
Yeah.
this movie, and I definitely gonna watch it just for the meme factor. But
Yeah.
I felt like everybody did a really good job, and I was really impressed and surprised by Tommy Chong being in there. I was like, oh, what? Really? This dude's gonna be in this movie? And like when I saw him, I was like, you know what? He's not more or less of his sort of expected character.
Yeah,
And
totally.
the last scene of the movie, or his last scene in the movie, was really fucking creepy, and I really liked that a lot. Like I thought that lended a lot to the vibe of everything going on, but I also felt
Mm-hmm.
like it was him playing a part that I just didn't expect him to be able to do very well at, and I was like, damn, dude, he I mean, even in that last section where he's not really acting anymore, they made him a good piece of the movie.
Yeah, totally, totally. It wasn't something that kind of, in a sense, it felt a little out of like, where the hell did this come from? But that whole movie kind of feels like that anyway. So it's like you're not really taken off a guard. Like, okay, let's see where this is gonna go.
Exactly. And
What?
oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, go ahead.
I was just gonna say it felt like there's a lot of H.P. Lovecraft that just basically I mean the stories that he tells are very kind of like ambiguous. It's very like
Mm.
you just don't get any sort of description, you don't get any sort of explanation. You are just sort of like big bad scary monster that you can't even imagine is here, and things are happening that you can't even imagine. And it's like, well, I
Yeah,
could imagine, try me. And he's like, no, you can't imagine. And
yeah.
that's what like the stories are, you know?
Yeah, yeah, totally, totally. I can say too, as far as with From Beyond, I think it was more of its time, where the ridiculous shit that was going on, it was kind of, you have Jeffrey Combs and Barbara Crampton, and not to say that they did a bad job, by any means, but it was kind of one of those things where it's like they're just kind of, filling the shoes of like what the situation is going on and reacting to the shit, But now the visuals and the stuff that was going on, especially for the 80s, you had a lot of movies that were going on that weren't something from John Carpenter or, bigger budget, that movie. I feel like I had read something about that they were supposed to have a huge, just like production value on like making it, and they went to Italy, I think, and they ended up shooting it there for like $10,000 or $10 million less than what they were initially going to. So as far as like kind of like the introduction, to how the whole thing was made too, especially was absolutely awesome. A striking moment in that movie, of all the creepy characters and creatures and shit in the beginning when they're in the asylum there, and the one dude's like jacking off, and he like
Yeah.
turns around quick. I was like, oh, what the fuck just happened? I had to rewind it once because I'm like, did I just see that right? Like, I know I'm going to be in for some weird shit, but I just want to make sure that I have that. And that was definitely something where I was like, okay, let's see where this goes. Later on,
Right.
Jeffrey Combs has a dick coming out of his forehead, and I'm like, okay, I saw it coming.
Yeah, yeah. And that was actually what I was a little bit disappointed with. The Color Out of Space was after watching From Beyond, I was so primed for like, yeah, creature feature, like just straight out the gate, like show me some crazy shit. I want to see some you know, insane monsters from beyond and all this stuff. And dude, Colorado Space is much more of a slow burn, much more of a slow burn.
Yeah,
and like,
for sure.
you know, it was like that kind of bothered me at first, because I was like, shit, dude, I want to see some stuff happen, and I just wasn't in the right mindset for like, okay, this is like a slow psychological burn where like, and then of course I didn't even notice this until I rewatched From Beyond today, and I guess like another Lovecraftian or sort of like idea that he has is that it influences like the electronics and the, you know, perceptions of people that are dealing with the situation. And that was what happened a lot in Colorado Space, where people were just like losing track of time, and they were you know, just having like kind of insane or like sanity lapses and stuff like that. And that was much more evident and much more like pushed in From Beyond versus like Colorado Space, where it was a little bit more like, oh, this is happening to normal people who are not trying to make it the most outlandish, ridiculous like display of, you know, just insanity horror that could exist.
Right. It almost, in a sense, looking at different other H.P. Lovecraft, it almost, in a sense, feels like it's, you know, like the softcore version. Like, we'll give you, you know, these couple ingredients first before we toss you all the way in there, you know, for it in different ways. I can definitely see that, yeah, for sure. What did you think about the score? You know, were there particular moments that you thought, you know, that were cool, that were fitting? You know, if did anything come to mind as far as like even like watching the movie, if there was like a band that they would have, you know, put in a score? Was there anything that came to mind for any of that?
I wasn't exactly sure who I would, you know, think of that may be able to like fill that gap. I'm sure there's someone, like, I'm sure that there's someone that I'm like not, you know, thinking of that would be like great. But I will say though that Tom York and his guitar player, the Tom York from Radiohead and his guitar player from Radiohead, they both score movies. They're both really good. I feel like both of those guys could definitely come up with some sort of like very creepy sort of idea for a score. But like the guy who scored the movie was also the dude who did Hereditary. And I will say that like the score for Hereditary stuck out a little bit more to me, because like it had like certain moments in the movie where I feel like it was much more of a featured like idea within the movie, you know, like the Paimon moment, like at the end where like he is in the treehouse and there's like the headless corpse that's like bowing to him, and it felt like there's this overwhelming sound and just like musical sort of like idea behind everything where you cannot ignore it. And I felt like this movie was more like a soundscape almost of a theme, where it was just it sort of blended in, and I didn't notice it so much as things were happening, because it felt like it tied in to what was going on. Like the disturbing images were just sort of like accentuated by the noise that was going on or whatever, and there wasn't like a thematic sort of repetition or kind of idea behind it as much as From Beyond. I felt like From Beyond, like from the beginning, it's just like that the title card comes up and that like very scary theme is going on behind it, and it kind of stood out to me a little bit more than like what was going on with Color Out of Space, but it still had its moments.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Okay, and From Beyond, I had to mention too. It was Charles Band, that did the score on that, and he's definitely had his name in different things too. But for whatever reason, different moments in the movie, I just felt like if I heard some like kick-ass like Supertramp, or maybe like a Rat solo or some shit, like the scene when he jumps in the ambulance and he goes to chase after her, like. If I just heard some ripping ass guitar solo going right then, I would have probably been like, "This is definitely getting a whole other fucking point higher on the rating scale."
If they just gave in to the decade that they were in, they would have totally just like garnered all these new fans. I was gonna say though, somebody mentioned in the comments the Void, and like I completely fucking got Void vibes from both movies, but like the Void I feel like was much more the modern answer to From Beyond, and definitely encapsulated that Lovecraftian sort of like idea of just the evil that you cannot fathom,
Yeah, right. Yeah. So I mean that movie was totally awesome. And then one of the co-directors just recently did that, Psycho Gorman. I don't know if you've seen anything about that movie.
I just watched that movie like literally a few nights ago, and that was great. That was absolutely like entertaining and wholesome, kind of in a way that I didn't expect.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, so they're doing some really, really cool stuff. As far as Steven Kostanski was the co-director. There was another guy, and goddamn, I can't think of what his name is now, but yeah, they're doing really, really cool things. Just as far as within film and kind of doing. The Void was just something them trying to throw together. Practical effects and kind of taking back some of the gross elements, and yeah, they pushed it there for sure.
I was a huge supporter of the Void, not monetarily, but but very much like through like excitement. Like I was definitely trying to get everyone to watch that, because I remember when it was just a conceptual like trailer, and they were basically like, yeah, we got to raise the money to be able to make this and stuff. But I was like, damn, dude, you guys look like you have the foundations of something fucking killer. Like, this looks like the type of like 80s film with the practical effects that I would hope for from a horror movie, and it just like it really they did knock it out of the park. Like, I do hope that we get to see a sequel to that movie, because it was definitely like of that caliber, of like that Lovecraftian sort of caliber of like, From Beyond, kind of all that stuff where you don't know exactly what's happening, you don't know why the cult is there, you don't know like what their end game is, and then all of a sudden you get into you cross the dimensional threshold, and you're like, oh shit, we're in a actual physical place where they're like trying to channel this shit to, and yeah, it was awesome. I mean, like, I hate this whole CGI thing. I love the makeup artist and just sort of like physical special effects that don't get the time of day or the budget that they should anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something, too, as far as more so in horror. But even there's a movie that just recently has been just pushed and advertised, The Tomorrow War. It's got Chris Pratt, some other cats in it. There's a shitload of that movie is practical effects. Believe it or not. I couldn't believe it myself, watching it and looking into it, and then further looking into the director, Chris McKay, and some of his interviews, and some of the people, one of the lead designers worked on the new It movie. He's done just a whole bunch of shit as far as creature and monster design. I was like, fuck, thank you, Lord. Like that is, you know, it's such a cool thing to see, you know, more of that stuff coming back, and, you know, something for somebody to actually visually be looking at and reacting to, you know, it brings a different emotion to it for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think that there's anything that can really hit as hard as just those physical, whether it's like skin bubbling or just you know, melting or some kind of like creature bursting or whatever the hell it may be. Like, it's just, there's nothing that can really stand up to that the way that just like good old fashioned, you know, physical effects can do. And I love seeing the behind the scenes of that stuff. And I just don't think we're ever going to get anything that will surpass that in horror movies, you know?
Totally, absolutely. One other one that he did too, which it sounds funny, you know, when you initially hear Leprechaun Returns, the old Leprechaun franchise.
Okay,
he did the most recent one, and it fucking rules. Like, it's good. I was surprised.
Still Warwick Davis?
It was a different guy. It's not Warwick Davis playing him. I can't remember who it was that they had play, but I was like taken back at how much I fucking liked that movie. Like, I watched it twice in a row. I was like, holy shit, this is actually really good.
Now that I'm thinking about it, it's like actually kind of a scarier Leprechaun.
Yeah.
If that's even possible.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll definitely have to check that out, because Leprechaun was one of the first movies that like traumatized me as a child, where I was like, you know, a demonic sort of like little monster entity that could like be my size at 6 years old and kill me. Like, I'm fucking thoroughly freaked out.
Oh, absolutely. And then he went to Vegas. You know, it's like, where is he gonna stop? This bastard just will go anywhere. And then he goes to space, and it's like, oh, fuck.
Then he goes to the hood, and that's probably the scariest place you could possibly be.
Oh my God, man! We just covered some ground there. I mean, that dude has fucking seen it all.
He has, and he's come out on top every time.
Oh
somehow.
my God, that is fucking hilarious. So Color Out of Space. What do you give it out of 10? Out of 10 drumsticks here, what do you give it?
I think I'm gonna have to give it 7 out of 10, because it's a slow burn. It's a very slow burn. I mean, like, especially with what I was hoping for from like the Void, or not the Void, From Beyond. I was expecting just like monster crazy shit out the gate. It was very slow burn. It, again, like, I was not very familiar with Lovecraft, and I'm starting to see like themes that go with his stories and his creatures and all that stuff. But I don't know, man. I did kind of prefer the 80s cheesiness this time to the more sophisticated kind of like 2000s remake. I mean, I did love the grotesque monster melding of the mother and son, so I will give it that. But yeah, I think 7 out of 10 is good. It's like, it's good story. It's a good like monster sort of movie. It just wasn't exactly like what I anticipated it to be. So it's pretty honest rating, okay. I think.
Yeah, totally. I dig that. You know, and it was something too that was brought to my attention today, and I thought maybe I had heard something more about it and looked into it. I didn't even realize that there was something shortly after this movie came out. So this movie was supposed to be part of a trilogy. There were supposed to be 3 movies that Richard Stanley was going to be doing, this being the introductory, and I think they were all H.P. Lovecraft. But then something happened as far as it came out that like he was like a known abuser, the director was, and so the movie got canceled. And I was reading through that, and it was one thing that really disappointed me in the fact of, like, not to condone that whatsoever. Fucking shitty. You don't have a place, you know, in Hollywood or, you know, anything like that. If you're, you know, you're doing terrible fucking things like that, you know, you don't have the spot. But the unfortunate thing with film is it's like, he's not the only one who worked on that. You know, you have, it's not just the actors. It's not just the writer. You know, the thing that sucks is it's like, one person fucked that up for everybody on that production, And
Exactly.
it's still tough because it's like, I love the movie still, you know, I love it. And it's hard, you know, separating the art from the artist. But, you know, it's like when you look at like Rosemary's Baby and Roman Polanski, you know, it's like, that dude's not very good either. And people fucking still love that movie too. So it's kind of a odd balance.
It's an incredibly slippery slope. And then God, if you want to fucking bring it to an even larger level, it's like, why are we even fucking with Lovecraft in the first place with all the other stuff that's gone on with him, where it was like acceptable back in the day, but we're all kind of like, well, he's such a like profound, you know, horror sci-fi writer, blah blah blah, like that, like we should be able to just like separate the art from the artist. It's like it's really about like, how much do you want to give a fuck about the stuff that they did, and how does it impact you enough that you can possibly be like, well, I guess I'll just kind of give it a pass because I think this is cool. It's like, dude, I'm not trying to say that like every single thing in entertainment is tainted and we need to just like, you know, just like take that into consideration and be like, yeah, whatever, you know, like I guess everything's fucked up and everything's terrible. It's like, but just understand that if you're going to shun the director, you're also like condoning the original writer from back in the 1800s who like had his own slew of like shit that we would not deal with in this day and age. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, it's a totally slippery fucking slope. So take that as you will, but it's out there in fucking Hollywood, and here we are watching it and analyzing it, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And you know, I mean, I wasn't gonna dig, you know, like all that far into it, but it was just something that somebody had made mention actually today, you know, and I was like, Jesus, I don't even know if I really knew a whole lot about it. And kind of reading into it a little bit more, I think I remembered a little bit, but I was just like, you know, fuck, that sucks, because, you know, it's like you like something, especially with film, you know, that one person isn't the only person that contributed to, you know, doing something like, you know, with that. So I mean, yeah, either way, I just thought that was kind of interesting and kind of a bummer in the sense of that there was going to be 2 other movies too, but he fucked up, and I don't think there's going to be. So
right, he did do a good job. That was the unfortunate part, but yeah, I know what you're saying.
So with From Beyond, I had to say honestly close, either like a 7.5 or 8. You know, the movie was so sick. Yeah, I absolutely loved the visuals. I loved some of the campy cheesiness. You know, Stuart Gordon with Jeffrey Combs. Reanimator has always been one of my favorite horror movies ever too. So it was more or less like wondering the whole time, like, how the fuck have I never seen this movie? Like, I just over and over, I'm like, I don't know how I missed this. It was like everything I was looking for in a weekend, and, you know, shitty 3 movies that me and my friends picked up, and it was like, I just wanted this. God damn it.
It hits really hard for that reason, and I had to get a South Korean bootleg because that's the only thing that's available for DVD. So, like, I love that movie that much where I was just like, gotta get this. But yeah, I totally agree with you. It's creature feature. It's amazing, and the actors are great, and the visual stuff is amazing, and I was glad that you get to see that for your first time, because like I got to see that for my first time last October, and I thought it was like fucking amazing as far as creature horror.
Yeah, for sure. I absolutely loved it. So, and this was fun too. This is something different. I've never done this before, so that was cool. You know, kind of digging into something like that, and something especially that I'd never seen too. So, and being able to share something different. So, you know, I really appreciate this. I love talking drums. I love talking, you know, movies and shit. This is, you know, concluding the interview here, but I do have one finale before that. If you want to let everybody know, you know, kind of what you guys have going on when you're going out for tour, where to find you on socials, all that shit.
Yeah, man. Actually, I got to bring up what the first date of our tour is, because I have not thought about that. I'm just like, I think it's September 3rd. But we will be out there for pretty much the entire month of September and then part of October. And then my social stuff is Alan Cassidy Drummer at Facebook. That's my artist page. And then if you don't already know, because you're watching on Instagram, my Instagram name is Pukake, Pookkake. So happy that no one was stupid enough to take that name before me. And then I guess like my YouTube is Alan Cassidy YouTube. I think that's like how you can find me. And then I have Twitter. It's Alan Blastidy, Blastiddy. But you should be able to find me, Alan Cassidy. And I'm just trying to double check real fast what our tour date start is. Yeah, it looks like Saturday, September 4th will be our first day. So, yeah, mark that on your calendars. It's Fillmore, Minneapolis. I'm sorry, there's also a September 3rd show in Chicago. So,
okay.
Don't forget that.
Sick. Nice.
But yeah, go online, look it up better than I have, and come hang out with us. It'll be great to see you. I'm totally vaxxed and waxed and ready to hang out and talk to y'all.
Nice. Awesome. I love it. All right, so I'm going to leave you off with this. All right, might have to think a little bit on it here, but I'm going to leave you off on the fact of the 90s kind of brought about, a time where horror movies were bringing on different bands to make soundtracks. Okay, you had like Scream 3 that had Slipknot and Creed and all this weird shit. If the Black Dahlia Murder got to be a part of a horror movie soundtrack, a sequel, what franchise would you want to be a part of a movie soundtrack?
Ooh, that's a good question. I feel like we would do best as a slasher or creature franchise.
Yes.
I think that we have the elements of both of those types of movies where it's like we have the intensity of a slasher sort of like idea, but I think that we could also have like some sort of intensity or sort of build for a creature thing. And my personal preference would be for a creature story because I love most like horror that is kind of that situation or some sort of like supernatural type of thing. Like creatures or supernatural, that's my deal. But I believe that we could be versatile for at least those other two genres. And as far as as far as a franchise, no clue. So get at us, Hollywood.
Nice. All right. Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, they've got some new Halloween movies coming out. I could be mistaken, but I feel like there's been some notes, and some lyrics kind of mentioning the Evil Dead. There's a new Evil Dead movie coming out. Maybe we gotta put up maybe a petition as far as getting a soundtrack made. You guys on that bitch?
I hope so. All of you should definitely help put out that petition because, I would love to do the same thing. I think that we sort of kind of had the window maybe to put our Evil Dead song into that movie when it came out, but I can't remember fully. And ever since then, I've been hoping that we could like jump onto something that we're all excited about, whether it's a horror movie or some kind of like action adventure or something like that. I would love to get involved with something.
Yeah, I mean, if Jumanji 3 comes up and they offer it, I mean, why not? Shit.
Absolutely. I mean, if The Rock and Kevin Hart have to do something to our song, that'd be fucking great.
Oh Oh shit, dude, this has been absolutely amazing, man. I really appreciate it. Everybody that's been watching, this will be edited and be on my YouTube page here in the next couple of weeks. I'll get it up and send you a link, man. Once again, thank you so much. This has been amazing, and I really appreciated the time with you today, man. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you for giving me a different interview. This has been awesome.
Awesome. So cool, man. Thank you. Once again, Lo-Fi Horror Guy, my dude, Alan Cassidy. You guys take care. Be safe, man.
Peace.
He's a lo-fi horror guy. Yeah, he's kind of a guy, but he is so lo-fi a horror guy. Yeah. Lo-fi horror guy has been recorded in front of a live studio audience.